Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 29th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings. In this segment, we finish up our Power Rankings 16-1, but before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 29th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we finish up our NFL Power Rankings. Number 16-1, where we left off. The Seattle Seahawks, our biggest fallers of the week, at number 17. Right ahead of them at number 16 is the winners of the Monday Night Football game. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, 2-0 under Russell Wilson. Their offense was not as explosive as you want it to be as it was against the Jets, but we saw a lot of big plays. A couple touchdowns to George Pickens get called back due to penalties or weird technicalities with players being in bounds. It was a good game by the Steelers. It wasn't a great game, and I feel like we didn't learn much. As much as it seems weird to say it was a must-win game for this team at 5-2, now 6-2, it was a must-win game for the Steelers. They took care of business. As we were talking about in segment 1, this was a game that, with the schedule coming up, the absolute brutality of that schedule, coming off the bye at the Commanders, the Ravens, everybody else in that division, the Chiefs later on, there is not an easy game. Maybe you can take a couple in the division, but the way that the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens are playing on any given day, the Steelers could lose or beat any of them. So it's a very interesting way to look at the rest of this Steelers season, but they got a game that they had to get. They head into the bye at 6-2, a good spot to be as they get into a very tough stretch they get into the very tough schedule down the stretch of the season. The Steelers here stay put at number 16. At 15, it's those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We knew it was going to hurt to lose all of their weapons, but Cade Otton played his best football of his career on 20 targets-ish. He gets into the end zone twice on National Tight End Day, a big day for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, proving that they can still run a competent offense even without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The problem comes more with this defense. They're not out of it in the division, but losing twice to the Falcons hurts. It doesn't just hurt, it stings. That is not the way that you are going to make a playoff spot. You need to win this division if you're trying to do anything out of the NFC South. The Bucs needed that game in the worst possible way, and unfortunately, they're just too injured to truly compete right now. They have a good team. They've got a lot of good pieces, but they need to run it back next year and be absolutely sure of what they have. The Buccaneers are at 15. At 14, it's the Denver Broncos, and they just keep on climbing. I'm very impressed with this team, and more importantly, I'm very impressed with Bo Nix. I, very vocally, have been a Bo Nix hater, and that's not going to stop. I'm not a big fan of Bo Nix, but what he's been able to do consistently on the football field has very much impressed me. His ability to get out of the pocket, escape pressure, once again, I'm very impressed by it. He had by far his best game of the season, granted, against the Carolina Panthers. But he showed me a lot in this game. He was able to hit hole shots. He was able to hit throws with anticipation down the field, hit tight ends on seam routes when they were open. This was a very, very impressive performance by Bo Nix and the Broncos. I'm not giving him too much credit because, again, it was against the Panthers, but they keep on winning games that they need to win, and they will find themselves in a playoff spot. Broncos are up 3-14. The Atlanta Falcons stay put at number 13. I know they got a big win against a division rival in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a game that I expected a lot more out of them. They're going up against a defense that had been giving up a lot of points back-to-back weeks, almost 50 points in back-to-back weeks each time, right? This is a team in the Atlanta Falcons who has a potent offense. This is also a team whose defense has been very disappointing, especially in the secondary. The communications with the safeties and the corners when they're playing zone defense just have not been there. The pass rush continues to be an issue for the Atlanta Falcons, but they escape with a big win. They continue to play like this. As long as they continue to get the wins that they need to get, the Falcons will be a threat when they make the playoffs. Falcons are here at 13. At 12, it's the Los Angeles Rams. They're back to the highest that they have been all season. They reached this point after a Week 1 loss against the Detroit Lions. And they're back here because guess what? They're healthy. They now have both of their wide receivers back. Puka Nacua goes for over 100 yards. Cooper Kupp catches a touchdown. Kyren Williams continues to have a nose for the end zone. Matthew Stafford, 4 touchdowns, 1 really bad interception, but it didn't matter. Against a really good Viking squad, one that was going to be a big threat for this team, they got over the hump. They got a big win to stay in the division race with the Niners, with the Cardinals, with the Seahawks. This was a must-win game for them. Again, there's a lot of those that's happening in these mid-season matchups, but that's what this was. They got on the board, and this is a Rams team that, since they were able to keep pace while they were hurt, is a dangerous team now. Don't sleep on them. They're one of the better offenses in the league, and the way that defense is playing with a lot of those young players, do not sleep on the Rams. They're my number 12 team right now. At 11, it's the Bears. They fall out of the top 10. This was a bad Bears game. This was a Bears game that harkens back to the early season Bears when the offense couldn't get anything done. And it's against a Commanders defense that, despite what the numbers might tell you, are not very good. This is a Commanders defense that the Giants were able to move up and down on. This is a Commanders defense that has given up 1,000,000 points and 1,000,000 yards in just about every single game. This is a not great unit over there. And yet the Bears were unable to move the ball. Now, I like a lot of the things that unit has, but still, the Chicago Bears were unable to do anything. For the first time since he really got in the league, this was a step back for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams took a step back. Now, he looked really good in that fourth quarter, but outside of that fourth quarter, everything should get scrapped for the Bears, including that final play. That was just embarrassing. The Bears fall out of the top 10. They are down 2 spots to 11. Hitting our top 10 here, starting off with the San Francisco 49ers. A big win for them over the Dallas Cowboys. They looked shaky though. They couldn't really get the run game going with Jordan Mason. He gets hurt again. Garendo comes in, plays a solid game. Brock Purdy gets some scramble yards, especially in the third quarter. They looked phenomenal, but they let the Cowboys come back on them in that fourth quarter. You can't do that. This is a 49ers team that was able to escape with a win. There's a lot of good, but they're a little bit too inconsistent for me to truly put them back into that top 5, top 7 contender range that we have formed a little bit over the last couple of weeks. They climb their way back into the top 10, though. They sit right on the fringe of it at number 10. At number 9, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. They've won 3 straight games now. And you can say it was against the Browns, the Giants, and the Bengals, but still, they've won 3 straight games. They're getting healthy again. The defense continues to be playing a lot better, especially on the defensive line over there, getting a lot of pressure, just like they did last week against the Giants. But still, a lot of good, a lot you like out of this Philadelphia Eagles unit. Saquon, over 100 yards yet again. Jalen Hurts did not turn the ball over again. That's the biggest thing. That's what I criticized him a lot for early in the season. As they continue to play clean football, this Eagles team is going to continue to be more and more dangerous. They're here at number 9. At number 8, it's those Washington Commanders. They played a really good game of football, Jaden Daniels especially. I know you can really harken it back. You can really look at that last play, that Hail Mary. That was something special, something magical, right? But he came in there with a painful rib injury, one that held him out of practice for 3 out of 4 days this week. That is not something that usually lends yourself to playing like that, and he didn't have his greatest game. He struggled to move the ball, especially in the red zone. The Commanders were not very effective. They didn't get the ball into the end zone at all until that final play of the game, and they could not get the ball in. They've had that issue before against the Giants in week 2. They were unable to get the ball into the end zone, but move the ball great between the 20s. They need to fix that a little bit. But what Jaden Daniels showed me, what he was able to do with the painful rib injury, shows a lot about this Commanders team. And then they just called on some magic to win at the end of it. So the Commanders are just down one spot to number 8. At number 7, it's the Minnesota Vikings. They take a second straight loss to two really good teams, I think, though. Obviously to the Detroit Lions, who are a wrecking ball right now, although we'll see what happens later on in this season, and the Rams, who I just finished talking about, are a sleeper, really good team. Just ignoring their record, the way that they play when that team is healthy, they can compete with just about anybody. It's a couple of good losses for this Vikings team, but it's a little concerning. I want to see they need to have a big bounce back game this week when they take on the Colts on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be an interesting one. Colts with Joe Flacco starting. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there, but that is a huge game for both of those teams. The Bills up a couple of spots to number 6, up 2 spots here. They've played really good football. Josh Allen threw his first interception in the rain here, but still, he played some awesome football. Keon Coleman coming into his own. Moss is Tariq Woolen over there in the end zone. The two-headed running game with James Cook and Ray Davis, and throwing a little bit of Josh Allen in there as well as your full power back kind of guy. That offense is clicking right now, and the defense is coming back to the way it was playing early on in the season. This is a dangerous, dangerous Bills team, and they've got a pretty good chokehold on their division. At 5, it's the Baltimore Ravens, and maybe you want me to drop them more. They only dropped 3 spots after losing to the Cleveland Browns, and I can understand you if you think they should fall further, but you have to look at the full body of work. You have to look at everything. This isn't just how did they do in Week 9 ranking. This is, you have to look at the full body of work. The Ravens have been a buzzsaw all season long, and it was a division matchup on the road. Those are never easy. This was a division matchup on the road with a new starting quarterback. Now, should the Ravens have won this game? Absolutely yes. Even with the way they played, they should have won this game. Kyle Hamilton drops 2 interceptions. There's another interception dropped later on in this game. This is just a couple blunders that they made. Other than that, they escape with a win. I don't think this is nearly as embarrassing as people are making it out to be. It's a solid Browns team, especially with Jameis Winston in there at quarterback. They have their issues, the Baltimore Ravens do. But I think people are blowing this loss out of proportion. They're only down 3 spots for my liking to number 5. At number 4, the Houston Texans. They lose Stephon Diggs. That is a big loss for them. They're down their top 2 receivers. Nico Collins should come back next week, not this week on Thursday, but right now they're running with Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, and, of course, Dalton Schultz at tight end. But it doesn't really matter because this is a team that is built on the run. This is a dangerous game that they are playing right now. Now, I know, again, everything I just said about the Ravens, except the Texans were able to win this one, is true about the Texans, right? The Texans were able to get a win instead, but they played a division team on the road. That's a tough matchup. It doesn't matter. The Texans, I really like this team. CJ Stroud not playing his best football right now, but still, this is a team that continues to win under the run game, which is something that we're seeing a lot more this year with especially these top teams. They've got really good running games, and that is what's propelling them to the top of the league. The Texans up to number 4. At number 3, it's the Green Bay Packers. And usually, as we saw in weeks 1, weeks 2, I would panic when Will Levis comes in. When Malik Willis comes in to the game to spell Jordan Love. Jordan Love goes down for the second time this season, but Malik Willis, undefeated quarterback. He once again leads this Green Bay Packers team really effectively. That's yet another game-winning drive for him in games that he's played. Outside of just a Hail Mary attempt, they are 3-0. This is a Packers team whose defense is playing really good. Like I was talking about, these teams at the top, It's the run game that have been powering it. Josh Jacobs playing really good football right now. The Green Bay Packers are at number 3, and they are a very dangerous team. At number 2, it's the Detroit Lions. We have this discussion every week. The number 2 team, though, seems to have a little bit of a curse put on it, from what I can tell. We have had just one repeat of the number 2 team ever this whole season. We started with the Ravens at number 2. Then they lost to the Chiefs. Then we went to the Niners at number 2 in week 2. Then they lost. Then the Texans in week 3. They lost. The Bills in week 4. They lost. The Lions in week 5. Then they lost. Vikings held the crown for 2 weeks in weeks 6 and 7, and then they lost. Then it went back to the Ravens, and they lost. And now it's back to the Lions. So that number 2 spot has been a little bit of a cursed spot right now, but still, the Lions are playing better football than just about anybody in the league right now. That offense is on a whole nother level. And it's not just the offense, it's special teams. What they were able to do on special teams, forgive me for sounding redundant, is special. What they were able to do against the Texans. Over 200 yards of total offense from the special teams, a touchdown. That was an awesome game from the Detroit Lions, a full, complete game from the Lions team. They shut them down defensively, the Titans, in the second half. And Jared Goff didn't even have to throw for 100 yards to win that game. It was very effective, very efficient Lions win. Their yards per they scored more points than they ran offensive plays. And that's not something that you see very often in the NFL. So congratulations to the Lions. They are at number 2, which of course leads to our number 1 team, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs once again hold the crown as they have all season long. They get another win. And you can come at me all you want. Oh, the Lions should be at number 1. Oh, they shouldn't have been at number 1 this whole time. They haven't lost yet. And they don't show any signs of slowing down yet. They just improving. They got another linebacker to fix their linebacking core depth after some injuries happened in this game. They could bring in D-Hop. He hasn't really seen the field yet, but when he does, it's going to be dangerous. Patrick Mahomes is only starting to play better football right now. He's had a really down season. They're a dangerous team, and they continue to stay number 1 until someone's able to knock them off the throne. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these power rankings, any issues you had with anybody on my list. Let me know in the comments. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the world of college football. A brand new, hot off the press, NCAA Top 25 coming your way, as well as a Group of 5 Top 5 that has the biggest changes yet. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.